The grand chamber floated in the void between stars, a massive station built by hands and claws and appendages from 100 different worlds. Inside, the Galactic Council gathered for an emergency session. Representatives from across known space filled the tiered seats, their forms as varied as the stars themselves. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Some had eyes, others sensed through vibrations or heat. But all of them shared one thing in common. They were afraid. Ambassador Jiwoo sat in the human section, a small alcove near the back of the chamber. She was a woman in her 50s, with short black hair streaked with gray and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Her simple blue diplomatic uniform stood in stark contrast to the elaborate robes and armor worn by other delegates. She had represented Earth for 12 years now, and in all that time, she had learned to keep her face calm no matter what storms raged inside. The High Arbiter, a being called Kelthon, rose from the central podium. His species looked like walking crystals, refracting light into rainbow patterns across the chamber walls. When he spoke, his voice resonated through translation devices worn by every delegate. "We convene today on matters of the gravest concern," Kelthon announced. "Evidence has emerged suggesting treaty violations by one of our member species." Jiwoo felt the weight of 1,000 alien gazes turned toward her section. She kept her expression neutral. From the hegemony section, Counselor Varath stood. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with a chitinous exoskeleton that gleamed like polished black metal. His multiple eyes fixed on Jiwoo with what she recognized as contempt. The hegemony had always looked down on humanity as weak newcomers to Galactic society. "We have detected unusual energy. Signatures from human colonies," Varath declared, his mandibles clicking with each word. "Signatures consistent with military-grade reactor systems far beyond what the expansion accords permit. We demand an immediate explanation." Holographic displays materialized above the chamber floor, showing sensor data from the outer edges of human space. Jiwoo studied the readouts carefully. The data was real, she knew. The question was how much they actually understood about what they were seeing. "These readings," Varath continued, "suggest humanity has been secretly building military assets in violation of treaty limits. We demand full inspection rights to all human facilities within 7 standard days." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Luminarchs, beings of pure energy contained in crystalline shells, pulsed with agitation. The Deepkin, aquatic creatures in mobile water tanks, created bubbles of concern. Even the ethereals, vaporous beings barely visible to normal sight, swirled with obvious interest. Jiwoo rose slowly from her seat. She walked to the speaking platform reserved for accused parties, her footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Every eye, sensor, and detection organ in the chamber focused on her. "Honored Council," she began, her voice steady and clear. "Humanity takes these accusations seriously. However, I must consult with my government before permitting foreign inspection of our sovereign facilities. I request 48 hours to coordinate a proper response." Varath's mandibles clacked with irritation. 48 hours. "You seek time to hide evidence." "I seek time to follow proper diplomatic protocols," Jiwoo replied calmly. "Surely the Council respects the sovereignty of its members enough to allow basic consultation procedures." High Arbiter Kelthon's crystalline form shifted colors, reflecting his consideration. "Ambassador Jiwoo raises a fair point. We shall grant the requested time. However, be warned, failure to cooperate fully will result in immediate sanctions. Earth's membership in this council, and all the protections that membership provides, will be suspended. You have 48 hours. Jiwoo bowed slightly and returned to her seat. As the council moved on to other business, she activated her encrypted personal communicator. A single message went out, traveling through quantum channels that couldn't be intercepted. They know something. Proceeding to next phase. Across the vast distance of space, in the Sol system that humanity called home, Admiral Tahan received the message. He stood on the bridge of what appeared to be a civilian research vessel called the Morning Star, through the viewing ports. Earth hung like a blue jewel against the black. Tahan was a lean man in his 60s, with weathered features and eyes that had seen too many battles in humanity's early days among the stars. Sir. Message from Ambassador Ji Woo, his communications officer reported. Tae-Hyen read the message on his private display. A slight smile crossed his face. How long have we been waiting for this moment? 23 years, sir, replied his first officer, a young woman named Biora. Since the day we started the project. 23 years, Tae-Hyen repeated softly. 23 years of preparation. 23 years of secrecy. 23 years of being treated like children by species that think age equals wisdom. He turned to Bora. Send protocol reveal to all units. Coded transmission, maximum encryption.
Yes.
Sir, Biora said, her fingers flying across her console, across human space, from the mining colonies in the asteroid belt to the research stations orbiting Jupiter's moons, from the terraforming operations on Mars to the deep space facilities in the Kuiper belt, encrypted messages arrived. Ship captains opened sealed orders they had carried for years. Station commanders activated protocols they had practiced in secret. Military personnel, who had posed as civilians for their entire careers, finally learned that their moment was approaching. On the bridge of the Morning Star, Tae-Hyen looked at the apparently civilian vessel around him. The bridge looked like any research ship. Sensor stations for astronomical observation. Computer banks for data analysis. Comfortable chairs for long voyages of discovery. But he knew the truth. Behind the false panels, beneath the civilian-grade hull plating, under the disguise of scientific equipment, the Morning Star was something very different. Admiral Bohr said quietly, "Do you think they'll actually go through with the inspections?" Tae-Hyen considered the question. Vareth and the hegemony? Absolutely. They've been looking for an excuse to put humanity in our place since we joined the Council. They see us as upstarts who got lucky with faster-than-light technology. They don't understand that humans have one advantage no other species in the galaxy possesses. What advantage, sir? Paranoia, Tae-Han said with a grim smile. We learned our history well. We know what happens to weak species in a galaxy full of strong ones. So when we joined the Council 50 years ago and saw how things really worked, we made a choice. We would never be weak again. He turned back to the view screen, watching Earth rotate slowly below. Somewhere down there, in the deep underground bunkers that served as unified Earth Command, generals and admirals were reviewing plans that had been refined over 2 decades. Somewhere in the outer system, hidden in the shadows of gas giants and buried in asteroids, the truth waited. Let them come inspect, Tae-Han said. Let them see exactly what we want them to see. And when the time comes, let them learn what it means to underestimate humanity. The Morning Star's engines hummed with barely contained power, power that no research vessel should possess. Around Earth's orbit, dozens of similar ships went about their business, all looking perfectly innocent, all hiding the same secret. The 48-hour countdown had begun, and with it, the final phase of humanity's greatest deception. The Hegemony Inspection Fleet arrived at Earth's primary orbital shipyard exactly 47 hours after the Council meeting. Commander Vrex led the inspection team, a veteran officer with centuries of experience in enforcement operations. His ship, the Absolute Justice, was an intimidating sight. Bristling with weapons and sensor arrays designed to detect any deception, Vrex stood in his command center, studying the sensor displays showing Earth's orbital infrastructure. What he saw matched his expectations perfectly. The humans had a modest shipyard capable of producing perhaps 2 vessels at a time. Their orbital defenses consisted of outdated missile platforms and energy barriers that would barely slow down a serious attack. Around the shipyard, he counted exactly 47 military vessels, ranging from small patrol craft to 3 medium-sized cruisers. Pathetic Vrex muttered to his tactical officer. I don't know what Counselor Vareth was worried about. These primitives couldn't threaten a merchant convoy, let alone the Council. Captain Dongman greeted the inspection team as they docked with Earth's command station. He was a stocky man with a friendly smile and an eager-to-please attitude that immediately set Vrex's mind at ease. Humans, who had something to hide, didn't act this cooperative. Welcome to Earth, Commander Vrex, Dongmin said, bowing in what Vrex knew was a human gesture of respect. We're happy to show you anything you want to see. We have nothing to hide. We shall determine that, Vrex replied. I want complete access to your manufacturing records, crew rosters, resource allocation reports, and energy production logs for the past 10 years. Of course, Dongmin agreed immediately. I've prepared everything you requested. Please, follow me to our data center. As they walked through the station's corridors, Vrex noted the clean but worn appearance of everything. Paint was faded in places. Some wall panels showed signs of repair. The station looked old, tired, and underfunded. Exactly what he expected from humanity's perpetually struggling economy. The data center contained rows of computer banks that looked primitive compared to hegemony technology. Dongmin handed Vrex a data chip. Everything you asked for, Commander. Manufacturing logs, personnel records, resource shipments, power consumption data. It's all there. Vrex inserted the chip into his portable analyzer. Numbers scrolled across his display. He studied them carefully, looking for inconsistencies, hidden expenditures, suspicious gaps in the timeline. But everything checked out. The humans were building exactly what they claimed to be building: patrol vessels, cargo haulers, civilian transports, and research ships. Their military budget was tiny compared to other Council species. I want to inspect your shipyard facilities directly, Vrex demanded. Absolutely, Dongmin said. I'll arrange transport immediately. For the next 3 days, Vrex and his team crawled over every centimeter of Earth's orbital infrastructure. They toured the shipyards, examining construction bays that were clearly designed for civilian vessels. They inspected the military ships in orbit, finding old but functional cruisers with standardized weapons and basic shielding. They reviewed crew rosters and interviewed ship captains who seemed competent but unremarkable. One member of Rex's team, however, wasn't entirely convinced. Dr. Haijan was a xenotechnology specialist, a human who had joined the hegemony service 15 years ago. She had a reputation for noticing details others missed. As she examined the power signatures from various human vessels, something bothered her, Commander, she said during a private meeting in Vrex's quarters. The reactor outputs don't quite match the listed specifications. Vrex looked up from his reports. Explain. These civilian vessels are showing power generations slightly above what their reactor models should produce. Not by much, maybe 5 to 8%. But it's consistent across multiple ships. Human engineering is notoriously inefficient, Vrex said dismissively. Perhaps they've made some minor improvements to their reactors. Perhaps Haijin agreed, though her tone suggested doubt. But I'd like to run more detailed scans, if you'll permit it. Vrex considered this. His orders were to be thorough, but they were also on a timeline. The Council wanted answers quickly. How long would these scans take? At least another week. It's too long. We've already confirmed the humans have no hidden fleet. Their military assets match their reports exactly. I'm not going to waste another week chasing phantom power readings. Vrex stood, signaling the meeting was over. We depart tomorrow. Prepare your final report. Haijin bowed and left, but the nagging feeling of something wrong stayed with her. She had spent years studying alien technology, and her instincts were rarely mistaken. But orders were orders. While the inspection team completed their work, Ambassador Jiwoo met secretly with Ambassador Sunho in a private room deep within the Earth's command station. Sunho represented the Mars Collective, humanity's largest off-world colony. He was younger than Jiwoo, only 40, but he carried the nervous energy of someone who understood the stakes of what they were doing. They're buying it, Sunho said, pacing back and forth. Vrex is convinced we're no threat. But what if someone like Dr. Haijin digs deeper? What if they demand more time? Giwoo sat calmly at a small table, sipping tea from a ceramic cup. Then we give them more time. We show them more of the same. Dongmin has been perfect in his role. He comes across as eager, cooperative, and slightly incompetent. Exactly what they expect from humans. But the plan requires them to leave convinced we're weak, Sunho insisted. If they stay too long, they won't, Jiwoo interrupted gently. Vrex is arrogant. He came here expecting to find nothing, and that's exactly what he found. Humans are very good at showing people what they want to see. Sunho stopped pacing. I still think this is incredibly dangerous. If something goes wrong, if they discover the truth before we're ready, then we adapt, Jiwoo said simply. Humanity didn't survive this long by having only one plan. But trust me, everything is proceeding exactly as Admiral Taehaeon predicted it would. Far from Earth, near the orbit of Neptune, something waited in the darkness. The massive shipyard designated as Construction Platform 17 had been operating in total silence for 18 years. It was built inside a hollowed-out dwarf planet, invisible to long-range sensors. Powered by reactors buried deep within the planetoid's core. Inside the platform, thousands of workers moved through the enormous construction bays. These weren't civilian workers. They were military personnel who had volunteered for a life of secrecy. Living underground for years at a time, seeing their families only through encrypted video calls, all for a mission they believed in completely. Captain Yang-soo stood in the main observation deck of Construction Platform 17, watching the final preparations on the vessel in Bay 1. The ship was enormous. Larger than any vessel in the hegemony's fleet, its hull was black, designed to absorb sensor scans rather than reflect them. Weapons batteries lined its flanks, covered for now by temporary plating. The vessel had been under construction for 12 years, and it was nearly complete. Status report, Young-soo requested. Lieutenant Jae-hee consulted her datapad. Hull integrity at 98%. Weapons systems installed and calibrated. Reactor core operating at optimal efficiency. Shield generators tested and functional. We're on schedule for completion in 8 weeks. The others? Platform 18 reports similar progress on their construction. Platforms 19 through 23 are each working on multiple vessels. Current total across all hidden platforms is 3,412 vessels in various stages of completion. Young-soo nodded, satisfied. Around him, his senior staff watched the great ship taking shape. They had sacrificed years of their lives for this moment, living in secrecy, working in shadow. But they all understood why it was necessary. Has the inspection team left Earth yet? Asked Commander Bora. 2 hours ago, Jae-hee. Confirmed? Commander Vrex filed his report with the Council. His conclusion: humanity poses no military threat and is in full compliance with the expansion accords. A ripple of quiet laughter moved through the observation deck. Yang-soo allowed himself a small smile. Then the deception holds, he said. For now, we remain ghosts. Unknown, unsuspected. Waiting. How much longer, sir? Asked Tactical Officer Minesio, young woman who had spent her entire adult life working on this project. Young-soo looked at the massive warship before them. Not much longer. The galaxy is changing. Threats are emerging. When the time comes, when humanity needs us, we'll be ready. In the council chambers, Vrex presented his findings to Councillor Verith and the assembled delegates. His report was clear and unambiguous. Humanity had no hidden fleet, no secret weapons, no capability beyond what they had declared. The energy signatures that had triggered the investigation were simply the result of human engineering and efficiency. Ambassador Gi-woo listened to the report with an expression of patient resignation, as if enduring yet another example of the Council doubting humanity's honesty. Inside, however, she felt a quiet satisfaction. The first test had been passed. The deception held. But as she returned to her quarters after the session, she received a coded message from Admiral Taehaeon. It contained only 2 words: storm approaching. Everything was about to change. The attack came without warning, as attacks always do when the attacker has been planning for years and the defender has grown complacent. The Dominion of Core had been watching the Galactic Council for decades, studying their patterns, noting their weaknesses, waiting for the perfect moment. When Commander Vrex took the Council's inspection fleet to Earth, leaving the border between Council space and Dominion territory protected by only a skeleton force, War Master Thraken knew his moment had arrived. Thraken was a being built for war. His species, the Korlothi, had evolved on a world where everything fought everything else for survival. They had no concept of diplomacy that didn't involve threats, no understanding of peace that didn't come from strength. When they looked at the Galactic Council, they saw weakness disguised as civilization. "Begin the offensive," Thraken commanded from the bridge of his flagship. The Endless Conquest, 2,000 Dominion warships, hidden in deep space for months, activated their drives simultaneously. They jumped through slipspace in coordinated waves, appearing at 3 strategic systems along the Council border. These systems weren't heavily populated, but they were vital for logistics and communication. Take them, and the entire Council defensive network would collapse. The Council's border stations never had a chance. The Dominion ships emerged from slipspace already firing, their weapons tearing through shields and armor designed for deterrence, not serious combat. Within 2 hours, all 3 systems had fallen. Hundreds of thousands of Council citizens died in the initial assault. On the station at Keeper's Rest, alarms began screaming. High Arbiter Kelthan materialized in the emergency council chamber, his crystalline form pulsing with red light that signaled extreme agitation. Port. He demanded. A Deepkin military liaison, Commander Roth, displayed tactical information on the holographic screens. 3 border systems have been attacked by Dominion forces. Initial casualty estimates are catastrophic. The Dominion fleet is now advancing toward the Threshold system. If they take Threshold, they'll have a clear path to the heart of Council space. Counselor Verrett's mandibles clacked with fury. Impossible. Our intelligence showed no Dominion fleet movements. They hid their ships in deep space, beyond sensor range, Roth explained. They've been planning this for months, possibly years, and they chose their timing perfectly. Our inspection fleet is still 3 days from returning to Council space. The chamber erupted in panic. Representatives from a dozen species shouted demands, accusations, and desperate pleas for protection. Kelthan struggled to maintain order. "We must respond immediately," declared a Luminarch delegate, her energy form flickering with alarm. "Every member species must contribute their full military strength to defend Threshold." "Agreed," said an ethereal representative, his vaporous form swirling with determination. "We invoke Emergency Protocol 7. All member fleets are to assemble at Threshold within 48 hours. Kelthan sent the call across the galaxy. Every Council species received the same message: war had come, and all were required to contribute their forces to the defense. The Luminarchs began gathering their energy beam frigates, elegant ships that could fire devastating beams of pure light, but were lightly armored. The Deepkin deployed their submarine-style cruisers, designed for stealth attacks, but vulnerable in direct combat. The Ethereals offered their phase ships, capable of shifting between dimensions, but slow and difficult to coordinate. Even the Hegemony, humiliated that the attack had come while their fleet was away on inspection duties, committed their remaining forces. When the message reached Ambassador Giwu's quarters, she read it carefully. The Council expected humanity to contribute what little military strength they possessed. It's probably a token force of patrol vessels that would be obliterated in the first minutes of battle. They weren't counting on human help to make a difference. They simply needed to show unity. Giwu activated her secure communication. Link to Earth. Admiral Tehan's face appeared on her screen. "You've seen the situation?" she asked. "Yes," Tehan replied. "The Dominion is making their move. The timing is unfortunate, but perhaps it's also perfect. Council expects us to send what few ships we have. They don't expect us to make a difference, and we'll surprise them," Tehan said with a slight smile. "Prepare for protocol reveal, final phase. Humanity will answer the Council's call. We'll send our full military strength." Giwu allowed herself a rare smile. "How long until you can reach Threshold? Our forward elements can be there in 36 hours. The main fleet will arrive shortly after. Tell the Council that Earth stands with them. Tell them humanity will not abandon its allies. They'll think we're sending a dozen ships. Let them think what they want. They'll learn the truth soon enough." Guo ended the call and made her way to the emergency council chamber. When she entered, the debate was still raging about fleet composition and defensive strategies. She waited patiently for a pause in the shouting. "High Arbiter," she said calmly, I wish to report that Earth will contribute its full military strength to the defense of Threshold. Counselor Varoth turned his multiple eyes toward her. Your contribution is noted, Ambassador, though I doubt your handful of patrol vessels will make much difference against 2,000 Dominion warships. Every ship matters, Giwu replied evenly. Humanity will do its part. Vareth made a dismissive gesture with his appendages and turned back to the more important discussion of deploying the hegemony's remaining fleet. No one else paid much attention to Earth's pledge. They had bigger concerns. In the Sol system, Admiral Teahan stood in the command center of unified Earth defense. Around him, holographic displays showed every human vessel in known space. The civilian ships in orbit around Earth, the mining vessels in the asteroid belt, the research stations around Jupiter and Saturn, the colony ships near Mars, all of them showed green status lights. Begin the transformation, Tehain ordered. Across human space, thousands of vessels received the activation codes they had been built to receive. The Morning Star, still posing as a research vessel, began to change. Hull plates that had looked like civilian-grade alloy slid aside, revealing the military-grade armor beneath. Sensor arrays that had appeared to be for astronomical observation reconfigured into weapons targeting systems. The ship's reactor, always capable of much more than it showed, ramped up to full military power. Similar transformations occurred on hundreds of vessels. Cargo haulers split open like flowers blooming, revealing weapons batteries that had been hidden in false containers. Mining ships activated shield generators that had been disguised as or processing equipment. Construction platforms detached the civilian machinery that had served as camouflage, exposing military command centers beneath Captain Dongman, who had played the role of eager button-competent liaison for the inspection team. Now stood on the bridge of the battlecruiser Sol's Pride, his friendly smile was gone, replaced by the serious expression of a combat veteran who had fought in humanity's early wars among the stars. All stations report ready, his tactical officer announced. Set course for Threshold, Dongman ordered. Maximum speed. We have allies to save and an enemy to surprise. In the hidden shipyards scattered throughout the outer solar system, the real work began. Construction Platform 17, where Captain Young-Soo had watched the great warship taking shape, now erupted with activity. The massive vessel in Bay 1, designated Sol's Hammer, began final power-up sequences. Around it, a dozen other completed vessels did the same. All systems green, Lieutenant Jae-hee reported to Young-Soo. We're ready to launch. Young-Soo looked at his crew. These men and women had lived in secret for years, sacrificing normal lives, families, everything, to build this fleet in shadow. Now, their moment had come. Open the bay doors, he commanded. The dwarf planet's surface split open, revealing the massive construction bay within. Sol's Hammer rose from its cradle, its black hole drinking in starlight. Behind it, 11 more warships emerged from other bays. Each one was larger and more powerful than anything the Council had ever built. All ships, form up, Young-Soo ordered. Set navigation for Threshold. We're going to war. Across the outer system, other construction platforms opened their hidden bays. Ships that had been built in secret over 2 decades emerged into the light. Dreadnoughts, carriers, battlecruisers, destroyers, strike craft by the thousands. Each one represented years of work, enormous resources, and the absolute determination of humanity never to be weak again. Admiral Tehan watched the fleet assemble on his tactical displays. 3,500 warships, each one incorporating technology developed in secret, tested in hidden facilities, refined over decades. The Council thought humanity was weak because humanity had wanted them to think so, but the truth was very different. Sir, said Fleet Commander Hyojin, all groups report ready for slipspace jump. How long to Threshold? 34 hours at maximum speed? The Dominion would reach Threshold first. The Council forces would be waiting for them, and neither side had any idea that humanity was coming with a fleet that would change everything. Execute jump, Tehan ordered. It's time the galaxy learned what humanity has been building while they weren't paying attention. 3,500 ships vanished from the Sol system simultaneously, tearing through slipspace toward the battle that would determine the future of the Galactic Council. Behind them, in the hidden shipyards, construction continued. The fleet that was launching was only the first wave. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for 23 years, and they weren't going to stop now. War Master Thraken stood on the bridge of endless conquest, watching his fleet advance toward Threshold. His tactical displays showed the Council forces assembling to meet him. Approximately 800 ships, he noted with satisfaction. A respectable force, but no match for his 2,000 warships. "They're going to try to stop us at Threshold," his second-in-command observed. "Let them try," Thraken replied. "We'll sweep them aside like dust. The age of the Council is ending. The age of the Dominion begins today." He had no idea that in the darkness between stars, something was coming that would prove him very, very wrong. The Threshold system was old by galactic standards, with 3 habitable planets and 2 massive space stations that served as trade hubs for this entire region of space. 5 billion beings called this system home, representing dozens of Council species. If it fell to the Dominion, those billions would either die or become slaves. The Council couldn't let that happen. Commander Roth of the Deepkin stood in the command center of the Council's defensive fleet, studying the tactical situation with growing dread. 800 ships, he thought, against 2 Ozend. The numbers weren't in their favor, but they had no choice. This was the line they had to hold. Dominion fleet emerging from slipspace, his sensor officer announced. Distance: 3 million kilometers and closing. Roth watched as the enemy ships materialized on his displays. They came in perfect formation, wave after wave of warships designed for one purpose: conquest. The Dominion didn't believe in elegant ship design or aesthetic considerations. Their vessels looked like weapons, because that's exactly what they were. "All ships, battle formation Delta 7, Roth commanded. Hold position until they're in optimal range." On the bridge of endless conquest, War Master Thraken studied the Council forces with the eye of someone who had fought hundreds of battles. The Council ships were arranged in a defensive sphere around Threshold's inhabited planets. A standard defensive formation, predictable and ultimately futile. "They're hoping we'll throw ourselves against their defenses and take heavy casualties," his tactical officer observed. "A reasonable hope," Thraken agreed, "but we have the numbers. Even if we lose a third of our fleet breaking through their lines, we'll still have overwhelming force to occupy the system. Begin the attack. All ships, advance." The Dominion fleet surged forward like a tidal wave of metal and weapons. The Council forces opened fire when the enemy reached 2 million kilometers. Their energy beams and missile barrages lighting up the darkness of space. The Dominion ships returned fire with devastating effect. Their particle cannons were more powerful than anything the Council possessed, and their plasma torpedoes could overwhelm. Shields through sheer destructive force, the battle became a brutal exchange of fire. Council ships exploded under the Dominion onslaught, but they took enemy vessels with them. The Luminarch frigates danced through the battle, their energy beams precise and deadly. The Deepkin cruisers used their stealth capabilities to strike from unexpected angles. The ethereal phase ships flickered in and out of normal space. Confusing enemy targeting systems, but the numbers were against them. For every Dominion ship destroyed, the Council lost 2 of their own. Roth watched his forces being slowly ground down and knew they couldn't hold much longer. "Estimate a time until defensive line collapse," he asked quietly. 90 minutes, his tactical officer replied. "Maybe less." Roth prepared to give the order for a fighting retreat. It would mean abandoning Threshold and everyone on it, but there was no other choice. Then his sensor officer spoke up, voice filled with confusion. "Sir, I'm detecting massive slipspace signatures. Multiple contacts emerging at the system's edge. I count. This can't be right." "How many?" Roth demanded. 3,000 ships, sir. They're appearing in formation around the entire Dominion fleet. 3,000. That's impossible. We don't have 3,000 ships in reserve anywhere." The sensor officer's voice grew even more confused. Sir, they're broadcasting human identification codes. Aboard Endless Conquest, Throcken's moment of triumph turned to bewilderment as his own sensors detected the impossible. Space itself seemed to tear open in thousands of places simultaneously. Ships emerged from slipspace jumps with a precision that suggested years of practice and coordination. They materialized in a perfect globe formation that surrounded his fleet completely. "What is this?" Throcken demanded. "Where did these ships come from?" "They're human vessels, War Master," his sensor officer reported, voice filled with disbelief. "But this doesn't match our intelligence on human military capabilities. We were told they had fewer than 50 combat-worthy ships." Throcken studied the tactical display. The human fleet was enormous, but more than that, it was organized in a way that suggested serious military training. These weren't merchant ships pressed into service or hastily armed civilian vessels. These were purpose-built warships. "Analyze their ship types," he ordered. "Sir, we're reading Dreadnought-class vessels, fleet carriers, battle cruisers, destroyers, and thousands of strike craft. Their ships are War Master. Their ships are larger than ours. Some of them are twice the size of Endless Conquest." Before Throcken could respond, a communication came through on all frequencies. A human voice, calm and controlled, spoke words that would echo across the galaxy. "Dominion Fleet. This is Admiral Teon of the Unified Earth Defense Force. You have 30 seconds to cease fire and begin immediate withdrawal from Council space. This is your only warning." Throcken felt rage building in his chest. A human threatening him? These weak primitives who barely qualified for Council membership. The species that every intelligence report described as militarily insignificant? "This is War Master Throcken," he replied. "I don't know where you acquired this fleet, human, but numbers alone won't save you. Dominion technology is superior to anything the Council possesses, and you're just another Council species. Your ships will burn like the rest." 29 seconds, Admiral Tehain replied, his voice unchanged. Throcken cut the communication. "All ships acquire human targets. Prepare to fire on my command. We'll teach these upstarts the price of a single shot cross 300,000 kilometers in less than 3 seconds. Captain Boon Han, of the stealth destroyer Ghost of Busan, had fired a railgun round. A solid slug of depleted uranium accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. The projectile had no warhead, no explosive charge. It didn't need one. The round hit Endless Conquest's shields and punched through them like they didn't exist. It penetrated the hull, traveled through 3 decks, struck the primary power relay, and the kinetic energy transfer caused a cascade failure throughout the ship's systems. Endless Conquest went dark, all power lost, weapons offline, life support running on emergency batteries. 28 seconds, Admiral Tehan said. Throcken stood in the darkness of his disabled bridge, emergency lights casting red shadows. Around him, his crew scrambled to restore power. It was impossible. One shot had disabled his flagship. One shot. All ships. Fire. He screamed into the emergency communicator. Destroy them. The Dominion fleet opened fire on the human vessels surrounding them. Particle beams and plasma torpedoes launched in a devastating barrage that should have torn through the human formation. Instead, the human fleet's point defense system activated. Thousands of small autonomous drones swarmed out from the human ships, each one equipped with miniature lasers and shield generators. They intercepted the incoming fire with terrifying efficiency. Particle beams were scattered by defensive shields. Plasma torpedoes were destroyed before they could reach their targets. The few shots that made it through the defensive screen hit human shields that absorbed the damage with ease. 10 seconds, Admiral Tehain counted down. Fleet Commander Hyojin watched from her carrier, the indomitable Dawn. She had trained for this moment for 15 years, running simulations, studying tactics, preparing for the day when humanity would reveal its strength. Now that day had come. Launch strike craft, she ordered. 300 carriers opened their bay doors. Each one released its full complement of fighters, bombers, and assault craft. 20,000 small vessels poured into space. each one controlled by an AI-human neural interface that allowed reaction. Times no purely organic pilot could match. The strike craft moved in coordinated swarms, their formation patterns shifting and flowing like schools of fish. They avoided the larger Dominion ships and went straight for the vulnerable points. Engine clusters, sensor arrays, communication nodes. Their weapons were small but precise. They didn't try to destroy the Dominion ships. They disabled them. 5 seconds, Tehan said. Thraken watched his fleet being systematically dismantled. His ships were firing desperately, but they couldn't hit the human strike craft. The small vessels were too fast, too coordinated, moving in patterns that seemed impossible. And every few seconds, another of his capital ships went dark as human railgun rounds disabled their power systems. Thraken shouted into his communicator. All ships, emergency jump to rally point Beta. Retreat now. The Dominion ships that still had power began emergency slip space jumps. They vanished in flashes of twisted spacetime, fleeing the battlefield in disorder. 300 vessels were too damaged to jump. They remained behind, drifting and powerless. The entire engagement had lasted 90 seconds. Aboard the Council flagship, Commander Roth stared at his tactical display in stunned silence. The Dominion fleet was gone, routed by an enemy they had vastly underestimated. And the Council's saviors were humans. Humans who apparently had a fleet larger and more powerful than anything the Council had ever seen. Sir, his communication officer said quietly, Admiral Tehan is requesting a channel to you and to the Council leadership. Put him through, Roth said. His voice numb with shock, Tehan's face appeared on the main screen. He looked exactly like what he was, a professional military officer who had just completed a successful operation. Commander Roth, Tehan said, the Dominion threat has been neutralized for now. They'll need time to regroup and reconsider their strategy. I'm placing my fleet at the Council's disposal for system defense until a more permanent solution can be arranged. How? Roth managed to ask. How do you have this fleet? Our intelligence showed. Your intelligence showed exactly what we wanted it to show, Tehan replied calmly. Humanity learned long ago that appearing weak can be as useful as being strong. But we've never actually been weak, just patient. Captain Youngsu stood on the bridge of Soul's Hammer, watching the disabled Dominion ships on his displays. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency, monitoring the situation, ready to respond if the enemy tried anything desperate. Sir Lieutenant J. He said, message from Admiral Tehan. We're to maintain defensive formation around Threshold until relieved. Acknowledged, Youngsu replied. He looked at the massive dreadnought around him, at the weapon systems that had just proven their worth, at the crew that had sacrificed years of their lives in secret. We're not ghosts anymore, he said quietly. Commander Biora smiled. Sir. Now we're exactly what we were always meant to be. In the council chambers at Keeper's Rest, emergency sessions were being convened. The questions were flying fast. How did humanity build this fleet? How did they hide it? What else haven't they told us? But underneath all the questions was a simple, fundamental shift in understanding. Humanity wasn't weak. They had never been weak. They had just been very, very good at keeping secrets, and the galaxy would never look at them the same way again. The emergency session of the Galactic Council began 3 days after the Battle of Threshold. Every delegate was present, either in person or through holographic projection. The atmosphere in the Grand Chamber was unlike anything in the Council's 1,000-year history. Fear, anger, confusion, grudging respect swirled together in a toxic mixture. Ambassador Giwu stood in the center of the chamber, exactly where she had stood when accused of treaty violations just weeks before. But everything had changed. She was no longer the patient diplomat enduring the Council's suspicions. Now she represented the single most powerful military force in known space. Hi. Arbiter Kelthan's crystalline form pulsed with agitated colors as he called the session to order. His voice, usually calm and measured, carried an edge of barely controlled emotion. We are here to address the matter of Earth's secret fleet, he began. A fleet that violates every principle of transparency and trust that this council was founded upon. Does it? Giwu asked calmly. I've reviewed the expansion accords very carefully, Arbiter. The treaty limits military expansion beyond a species' home system. Every single vessel in our fleet was constructed within the Sol system. We did not violate the letter of the law. Counselor Vareth slammed his appendages against his console. The sound echoed through the chamber like a gunshot. You hit an armada. You lied to us. My inspection team found nothing because you deliberately deceived them. Your inspection team found nothing because they assumed we were primitive and weak, Giwu corrected. We showed them exactly what we wanted them to see, and they saw it because it confirmed their existing beliefs about humanity. That's not deception, Counselor. That's your own bias. The chamber erupted in shouting. Delegates from dozens of species tried to speak at once, their translators creating a cacophony of overlapping voices. Kelthan struggled to restore order when the noise finally died down. A Luminarch delegate spoke, her energy form flickering with carefully controlled anger. You claim you didn't violate the accords? Perhaps technically true. But you violated the spirit of the treaty. The Council requires openness and honesty from its members. Does it? Giwu asked. When humanity joined this council 50 years ago, we were told we would be equal partners in galactic civilization. Instead, we were treated as children. Our opinions were dismissed. Our warnings were ignored. Our representatives were patronized and condescended to. The council demanded our resources, our labor, our compliance. But equality? That was never actually on offer. An ethereal representative swirled forward. We gave you the protection of council membership. We shared our technology. We allowed you into galactic society. You tolerated us, Giwu said flatly. There's a difference, and we learned quickly that tolerance is not the same as respect. So we made a choice. If we couldn't earn respect through diplomacy, we would ensure respect through strength. Admiral Tehayan appeared as a holographic projection beside Giwu. His presence caused a stir in the chamber. The delegates had seen footage of the Battle of Threshold. They knew this man commanded a fleet that could destroy their combined forces with ease. Members of the council, Tehayan began, his voice calm but carrying undeniable authority. I want to explain what humanity has been doing for the past 23 years. When we joined the council, we were weak. That's simply fact. We had just developed faster-than-light travel. Our ships were primitive. Our understanding of galactic politics was minimal. We were excited to join what we thought would be a partnership of equals. He paused, letting his words sink in. What we found instead was a hierarchy. The strong species ruled. The weak species served. And humanity was very clearly in the second category. We watched as the hegemony made demands and other species complied. We saw how the Luminarchs and Deepkin received preferential treatment in trade negotiations. We noticed that human complaints and concerns were always addressed last, if at all. Dr. Haijin, the xenotechnology specialist who had suspected something during the inspection, spoke up from the gallery. You could have brought these concerns to the council formally. I did, Tehan replied. Multiple times. Ambassador Jiwu's predecessor filed 17 formal complaints about discriminatory treatment. All were dismissed or ignored. So we realized that complaining wouldn't change anything. Only strength would. He gestured, and a holographic display materialized showing the timeline of humanity's secret construction project. 23 years ago, Earth's leadership made a decision. We would invest 70% of our gross domestic product into building a fleet. Not for conquest. Not for aggression. But so that we would never again be in a position where other species could treat us as inferiors. Every mining operation, every research station, every civilian transport you saw was part of the infrastructure supporting this goal. Defense. Minister Subin joined the holographic conference from Earth. She was an older woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much, compromise, and decided enough was enough. We built our ships in the shadows of Jupiter's moons, Subin explained, in the Kuiper Belt beyond Neptune. In hollowed-out asteroids that your sensors couldn't penetrate, we designed them with stealth in mind. so they could hide in plain sight. Every human vessel you've ever seen had dual-purpose systems. Our cargo haulers could transform into assault ships. Our research stations were actually military command centers. Our entire civilization became dedicated to a single purpose, ensuring our survival. Counselor Vrotz's voice was filled with barely controlled rage. And what happens now? You have this fleet. You've proven you can destroy any of us. What's to stop you from conquering the Council? The same thing that always stopped us, Giwu answered. We don't want to conquer you. We never did. We just wanted to be treated as equals. Humanity didn't reveal this fleet to threaten the Council. We revealed it to save the Council from the Dominion. You could have told us before, a Deepkin delegate argued. You could have warned us you had this capability. You would have demanded we dismantle it, Jiwu replied. Or subjected us to constant inspections and restrictions. Or found some other way to neutralize what you saw as a threat. This way, you learned the truth when it mattered most. When the Dominion attacked, humanity was there to help. That should tell you our intentions. High Arbiter Kelthan raised his crystalline appendages for silence. Ambassador Jiwu, Admiral Tehan, Defense Minister Subin. The Council acknowledges that you saved Threshold. You prevented what could have been a catastrophic Dominion victory. For that, we are grateful. However, this situation cannot continue as it is. We must establish new protocols, new oversight, new measures to ensure this never happens again. No, Giwu said simply. The single word fell into the chamber like a stone into still water. Delegates stared at her in shock. No, Kelthan repeated. You refuse Council oversight? We refuse to return to the old system, Jiwu clarified. The Council can establish whatever protocols it wants for its other members. But Earth is done asking for permission. We're offering the Council a new arrangement. A true partnership, not the pretend one we've had for 50 years. High-End stepped forward in his hologram. We propose a mutual defense pact. Humanity will share our defensive technology with the Council. We'll continue to protect Council space from external threats. In exchange, Earth receives a permanent seat on the Security Council with full voting rights equal to any founding species. Equal rights, Viroth sputtered. You demand to be placed on the same level as species that have been part of this council for millennia? We demand to be placed on the same level as species with comparable military strength, Tehan corrected, which, if we're being honest, is actually above most of you. But we're willing to accept equality rather than insist on our demonstrated superiority. The chamber erupted again. Some delegates were outraged at the presumption. Others were frightened of what humanity might do if